Welcome to the show. This
Thank
is
you.
Cornico Wellness Podcast. My name is Jared Casey. I'm your host today. I'm introducing everybody to Shelly Jo, the founder of Hypno Amino and many other great endeavors. Shelly, I'd love to just kind of hear from yourself. Introduce yourself to our audience, and let's go from there.
Okay. Do you want me to start at the beginning, like where I am, or?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
All right. I'm Dr. Shelly Jo, and I own a business that helps feed the brain, body, and emotion. Uh, I'm from Roy, Utah, and I'm a grandma, which is the best. I started out doing this because I'm a mom, and moms will go to the depths of hell for their children. Would you agree?
I've seen that firsthand, yes. My mom and I were really close, and I think she'd have done just about anything for me. And I've seen that in my own life. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I have three daughters. My middle daughter, my youngest daughter, was diagnosed with anxiety at age 6. And at the time, we did everything that was available. We took her to the doctor, we got her on some meds, got her some counseling, and thinking, yes, we've done everything we could. This is great. Now we can move forward. Uh, Made a little bit of a difference. But at age 15, she came to me and said, Mom, I'm tired of it being a doctor's science project. I just want to feel normal. And it broke my heart. Those 6 words, I just want to feel normal. Because I thought, well, we've done everything we can do. I don't know how else to help you. And unfortunately for her, she turned to marijuana and um, alcohol just to feel normal. And the sad thing is she was getting it from her friend's mother, which is so frustrating because, as a mom, you think that we're on the same team, right?
right.
And that, I'm going to watch over somebody else's daughter. I would hope that they would help watch over mine. But I felt like I was swimming upstream because I'm fighting this force of wanting to keep my daughter healthy and keep her safe and not even realizing that it was another mother that was giving her the things. And unfortunately for her, it was her answer to feed the brain what the brain was missing. Mm. And I thought, well, I could ground her or I could love her to get her to stop using. That was my naivety to what addiction looked like. Got her through high school. Yay! That one feeling when I feel like I should have been the one that walked across the stage with her. But I was determined, like, by golly, I'm going to get her to graduate. Got her to graduate. And then we thought, okay, let's get a new start. Let's see if we can get rid of the addiction so that she can have a clean slate. So we put her into a rehab center. Cost us $24,000. But we're like, well, if this is the answer. They said she'll come out clean from alcohol, marijuana. And I'm like, okay, well then that'll be great. 30 days later, she did. She came out clean from marijuana and alcohol. She came out addicted to sugar, caffeine, and tobacco. And I'm like, well, at least they're legal. So I'm good with this. She's clean. Yay, we can put addiction behind us and go forward. Happy day. I didn't realize that was just the beginning of my hell. 30 days later, she was introduced to meth from her roommate she met in the rehab center.
Wow.
So, in a sense, I paid $24,000 for my daughter to find meth. And that rocked our world. I lived in complete fear that I was going to lose my daughter. I would watch where she'd leave, and I was just convinced that I would lose her. So I was tracking her where she was, so that in case something happened, I could find her. And that was my mindset, and it was complete fear as a mom. My thought was, my biggest fear was that she would kill herself. She would kill somebody else. She would hurt me because somebody who's on meth, it's scary.
Oh, yeah.
It changes, just like it changes every single part of their persona and who they are. And I was afraid of my own daughter. And she could end up in jail. Now, she did end up in jail. And the first time she ended up in jail, I was actually relieved. I was like,
You can sleep tonight.
I can sleep tonight, right? Hallelujah. After these few years of going through this day after day, night after night, worrying where she was, I knew sure where she was. And she got out and she said, Mom, I'm going to stay clean. And I believed her, and I believed that she believed it. But what I saw and what I learned about people who struggle with addiction, it was three things. One, nobody grows up thinking, I want to become addicted. Number two is usually they are self-medicating, either from trauma or mental issues. And number three is they're just white knuckling it. So even if they don't feel good, or they're being forced, to stay clean because of the court system or their family or something, that doesn't mean they feel good. They're just holding on. And that was the process I watched her. So I watched her go from, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, until she couldn't. And then she'd relapse, and then she'd end up in jail. And I started to watch this pattern. And in fact, one of those times that she ended up in jail was because she was threatening me. And I had to call the cops and say, please come get my daughter. And no mother should have to make that phone call. But I was so afraid of her. So finally, she actually went to jail not once, twice, three times, but four times. And finally, that fourth time, I thought, I've got to find an answer. I'm going to lose my daughter. And I watched her going through that. So she was put in jail in May, and I'm watching this 6 months getting closer, thinking, it's just going to last. And I did the only thing I knew to do, and that was pray. And I said, God, Father, please help me find an answer. I don't want to lose my daughter. And 2 days later, there was a show on Gephardt, who, for those of you who don't know who Gephardt is, he's a local news broadcaster who does consumer reports. And he was doing a report about a rehab center that was using amino acids as part of their protocol to help with cravings, but they were doing it through an IV. And what they found is after 3 days, the cravings started to go away. And after 10 days, they're almost completely gone. They had an 85% rate of recovery. And I'm like, that's my answer. Because the amino acids they were using were specific to the brain. So it was helping those stop those cravings. And I thought, that's it. That's my answer. And it's $1,000 a day. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Can I have a different answer?
We got that change jar at home. That's no big deal.
Yeah, please. Can I have a different answer, right? So I did the next best thing. Dear Dr. Google, find me a rehab center that uses supplements, because I was like, well, maybe I can't do the amino acid in an IV, but maybe I could give her a whole bunch of supplements. So I'll go to the health food store and buy a bunch of supplements and give them to her. And it might take longer than a week. Maybe it'll take a month, but maybe it'll just help her enough to help her to be able to recover. And a friend of mine says, you can't just throw amino acids at people. You need to understand how they work. I'm like, well, that's probably a really good idea. So through Google, I found a rehab center in Florida. And I called and said, look, first of all, I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. And I have clients that come to me and they really want to make a change. And I work with them and we're working with the emotions. And I think this is a great session. And then they come back the next week and it's like I hadn't done anything. And I'm like, Okay, that doesn't make sense. Did I do something wrong? Was there something I could have done different? So we do another session. It would be great. I'm like, okay, this is it. And then come back next week. It's like 51st dates. So I'm like, what is it? I don't understand about the brain. And is there something chemically not allowing these changes? I had no idea, but I was like, maybe that's the issue. Maybe that's what what has been going on. So when I called that center in Florida, I talked to the owner. I said, first of all, I'm a hypnotherapist. I have these clients that they want to make changes. I feel like there's something missing. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's a chemical or something. And I'm a mother of a daughter who struggles with addiction. What can you teach me about amino acid therapy that can help me? And he said, I can teach you everything you need to know. But in 2 weeks, we're having a training in Salt Lake City, which is 30 miles from my home. And that's where you learn all the answers. I was like, thank you. And so it led me down this path of understanding the brain and what the brain has to do with addiction. And I got so excited that I started sharing it with anybody who would listen to me. And the other thing is I got really angry because I was like, why is this information not known? Why didn't I know this when she was 6? Because maybe if I'd known at 6, she may not have, and I could have changed the way her brain was firing. Maybe she wouldn't have turned to drugs and alcohol at 15. So that anger led me to say, by golly, I want to get this word out. I want to help that mom who has a 6-year-old who is struggling, or that teenager who is so attached to their phone that their self-esteem is all wrapped up in what's going on here. And, they're gaming or they're on this phone all the time. They're addicted to their phone. And they're just struggling. They're struggling with life. They're struggling with school. Or the adult who's just white knuckling it. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I'm going to start doing that. It exploded. Because I realized that there was a need for people who, all people, there are very few people, it's interesting, very few people I've met who are the brain and their chemicals in the brain is causing this struggling and they don't even understand it. And that's when I learned, what I learned has made a huge difference.
I think, just reading, I read through most of your book. I haven't finished it yet, but I went through there and I saw your passion and your story and how it took you from, you had businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys were successful family, with like Subway franchises or something.
Yep, we own Subways, yep.
And when in my mind, I think Subway franchise, you could do that for the rest of your life and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you could, provide for your family, etc. I don't know that for sure for you, but it sounds like it wasn't as feeding a passion. And then when you came across A, the problem, and B, a solution that really seems to serve you and your family, that just filled you with energy and drive and motivation. And meeting you and knowing you, you got a lot of personality, you got a lot of pumping in you, and it's exciting. You're magnetic. It's fun to be around you. Has it always been that way for you, or has even giving your brain more amino acids, has that helped you to feel better in general? And maybe just speak to those thoughts.
Well, when I was in my 20s, I've always been intrigued with self-help, with the law of attraction, those kind of things. I call myself a seeker of truth and light. And that's when I started on that journey to keep learning. And it was, when my daughter finally graduated, I thought, I want to do something. I don't know what I want to do. I mean, Subway was great. And it was fun and I learned a lot, but it was never really my dream. I was like, this is not really what I want to do. I want to do something that can make a difference. And that's when I became a certified hypnotherapist, because it was like, I want to help people to be able to figure out what is going on in the brain, that the emotional part, right? Because we have these limiting beliefs and we have these sabotaging stories that are in the subconscious that we're not even aware of. And when you can get to the root of the problem goes away. And that's part of what I saw with hypnotherapy. But then at the same time, this is when I learned about my daughter. And I also learned that, well, wait a minute, I think I'm addicted to sugar. And I had no idea, because I thought there was a sugar gene, because my family, we love sugar. So I'm talking candy. I'm talking Good and Plenty's and Peeps and all that. Really, it's just sugar, right?
Right.
I mean, I used to say my favorite is cotton candy, like fresh cotton candy, like at a fair.
Oh yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, it's like candy of the gods, right? It's like, oh my gosh, it's like straight sugar, right?
It's basically cocaine.
Absolutely, sure is. And I thought, isn't everybody loves sugar? I mean, I just love sugar, right? And I didn't realize that it was an addiction. I just thought I always have sugar, right? I mean, people say, which usually you'll take a bunch of sugar and it'll spike you and crash you. Well, I was never off sugar. So I had sugar always with me. So I just need more sugar. I lived on a consistent basis of some kind of candy until I got to this conference, or to the training. Because I walk in and I'm exhausted. And I'm like, it's 11 o'clock and all I want is a Diet Coke and some Good and Plenty's and a nap. And thinking, this ends at 6 and I don't not even have a clue of how I'm going to make it from here to here without taking a nap.
Good and Plenty's, just little by little.
Give me my candy, right? Until we started talking about the brain. And what I learned about the brain is, first of all, we have these really cool chemicals in the brain. They're called neurotransmitters. It's you're happy, you're calm, your energy, you focus. And when they're firing, they are amazing. But when they're not firing, they're not so amazing. So if you can picture this picture here you have your brain. And for whatever reason, it's not firing these really cool chemicals. Okay? There's dopamine, which is your energy, your drive, your focus. Serotonin, which is positive mind, flexibility, humor, confidence. GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter that allows your body to relax naturally, to calm down. And then endorphins, and they make you happy. And like I said, when they're firing, best feeling ever. But when they're not firing, then that means that they're depleted. And they can be depleted for lots of reasons. Sometimes you're born with less of them. So, like my daughter at age 6, it was more likely that she was born with less of them. It could be toxins. It could be diets. It's trauma, heavy metals. 60% of people over the age 40, neurotransmitters are depleted. Menopause, because estrogen and progesterone help to support the neurotransmitters. What happens when somebody goes through menopause? There's no more estrogen and progesterone, which means a woman, it becomes depleted. So there's no rhyme or reason. I just say that we live in this perfectly imperfect body, and there's really no reason why. You can't just say it's because of this. It just is. So the brain is depleted, and then when the brain is depleted, it can create these symptoms: anxiety, depression, worry, stress, lack of energy, lack of sleep. lack of drive, lack of feeling that life is good. And when we feel that way, the brain says, I don't like this. I want to feel better. I want to be on I want to feel homeostasis. So it goes out looking for something to feel better. Right? And each of those neurotransmitters likes something different. Serotonin follows light, and so you're going to wake up and have the most amount of serotonin ever. But as the day goes on, it's going to drop. So if you already wake up depleted, then by afternoon, evening, that's when you're going to feel it the most. Serotonin turns into melatonin, which means it makes it hard to sleep. Now, one of the interesting things about serotonin is it's going to drop afternoon, evening. And one of the biggest cravings for serotonin is alcohol. And so it starts to drop. And what is there at that afternoon, evening for somebody who wants alcohol? Happy hour, right? So establishments create this. We're going to give you between that, 4 to 6 period, we're going to give you a discount. And somebody who is struggling, if that's the way they feel that serotonin, that's very enticing to them, right? And usually when somebody's serotonin is low, they're going to turn to alcohol, marijuana, ecstasy, something to bring them down. The actual medications would be SSRIs like Lexus and Cymbalta, Lexapro, things like that, because that's what's going to help to raise the serotonin. Dopamine, it says your energy, your drive, your focus. So when it's low, you're looking for something more stimulation. You wake up in the morning, you have no energy, and you're like, down here, and I want to feel some energy. So I'm going to grab some caffeine. I'm going to grab something that has aspartame, because aspartame is one of the most addictive substances there is. But I want something to give me energy. Monster drinks.
Aspartame's like in Diet Coke and stuff, right?
Yep, Diet Coke.
And monster drinks.
Yep, monster drinks. Something that's going to give me that instant boost of energy, right? Which is going to feed the dopamine. Now the challenge is when you're feeding the dopamine these high amounts, right? The drug would be meth or cocaine. What that does is it depletes your dopamine, your own natural dopamine, even farther. So now you're down in the hole and you keep needing more and more just to get up and to feel that feeling. Endorphins are your happy. So when your endorphins are low, you're looking for comfort, reward, or numbing. Comfort, I want to feel love. Reward, I deserve it. Numbing, I just want to check out. It could be self-harm. It could be...
Wait, go back on that. Why is self-harm attached to this? Like, let's just...
Endorphins?
The endorphins.
Because endorphins is your body's natural morphine.
Okay.
So when somebody self-harms, it floods the body with that morphine. So it's not necessarily what you're doing, but the desire to feel that overall good feeling keeps them doing something that even though it's not good for them, the outcome is. So it could be cutting, it could be pulling your hair out, it's biting your nails, it's pornography. Because it's that instant flooding of the body and feeling amazing, right? Somebody who struggles with pornography, I'll ask them, tell me what you felt just before you clicked on the button. And then they'll say, well, I'm either feeling numb, so I'm feeling nothing, or I'm feeling so much that the minute I click on it, I just feel that flood of those emotions. And it can cause other emotions, guilt, shame, whatever they feel, but that's that instant why they are so drawn to it. It's excessive grief. It's sensitive emotional physical pain, because it is what morphine does, right? And so the body's wanting something to feel better. It's comfort food, mashed potatoes and gravy, pizza, right? Wanting something to fill that void. It's scrolling. When all of a sudden you're on your phone and your social media, and next thing you know, it's been 2 hours. And you're like, where did the time go? Or TV or something that can take you out of here, and so it's either an addictive behavior and an addictive substance. That's where the opiates come from. So the opiate addiction is linked to those endorphins. And the hard thing about the opiate addiction is because now they've figured out that you can't just give you a plethora of opiates because they're highly addictive. So if somebody can't get it, they can go to heroin. And they get it for cheaper and they can have that feeling. And so then what it's doing is keeping them stuck in that feeling. And the last one would be, and then GABA. GABA helps to calm you down physically. So where serotonin is, the mind is racing, the mind chatter, worry. GABA is where you feel it. You feel that panic, you're in that fight or flight. Can't relax, can't calm down. For a little child, it would be that tummy ache where each morning they wake up to go to school and they have a tummy ache. Right? And you go to the doctor, there's nothing wrong with them. And it could be that their GABA is so low and they're feeling that. Right? Feeling that anxious feel. The drugs associated would be benzodiazepines. You need the benzos because the body wants to relax. And the interesting thing is each of those has an amino acid that by feeding the brain what the brain needs, it helps to raise those neurotransmitters, which then reduces those cravings and those feelings and allows them a chance to make a different choice. So it at least puts them down that road. And I think everything that you can do, like addictive programs are wonderful. They're necessary. When I was talking to my daughter, I said, what was it that was missing? Or, what do you feel is most important in a program? And she said, the connection is huge for somebody who is wanting to stay sober. So there's a lot of great things that they still need because now they're going to learn how to live in a sober world, which is different. Most of them have never been able to figure out what that looks like. I remember my daughter, as she started to come out of this cycle, she said to me, Mom, you never taught me how to be an adult. And I was like, that's because I'm trying to keep you alive. But that's one of the keys, is learning how to be an adult and how to adult. But when you can feed the brain amino acids, and amino acids come from protein, right? Protein, it would be like meats. That's where you get a complete protein. All the amino acids. Dairy, there's different ways. But the challenge is, the thing is you eat protein and it has all the amino acids in it. So amino acids are protein broken down to its most minuscule amount. And then that goes in the body, it feeds every single cell of the body. That's why amino acids are so important. Some of them your body actually makes. Others, the only way you get it is through food or through a supplement. Tryptophan comes from salmon and turkey. Right? So Thanksgiving comes, right? Now this is, I kind of chuckle at this because, on Thanksgiving, we eat turkey, right? Which has tryptophan in it.
So the afternoon nap happens right after you get
that. Yeah, after you eat it. Or is it because we eat so much? Or is it a combination? Yeah. Right? But those are two foods that actually have tryptophan in it. The other one is L-phenylalanine. It is also an essential amino acid. that your body can only get through supplements or through protein. The other ones, you do create your body. The problem is either you're not getting enough in, so that your body's not making enough to feed the neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter is actually malnourished because it's not getting enough. So when we can feed the brain what the brain is missing, that's when it helps to raise those neurotransmitters through these specific amino acids. And I do have people say, well, why can't I just eat more food? If I can get amino acids through eating more meat, why can't I just eat more meat? Well, it's because when you eat meat, then what happens is that meat's going to digest, and it's going to have to go through a digestion program. And then you can't say, I need all this to go in my brain. It's going to go in your brain, in your body, in your muscles. So you can't raise your neurotransmitters just from eating amino acids. But it's important. So we're not saying don't eat food and only eat supplements. The idea is to eat food so it can support you. Then come in with these specific amino acids to feed the brain what the brain's missing. And then by feeding those amino acids, then at the point where your brain starts to become more balanced, the need for the amino acids is going to come down. And then it is the food that can support you. So we're not saying stay on amino acids forever, but get the brain firing. And then you might need some because, obviously we live in this imperfect body. And there'll be times when you still will go up and down, just because it's normal. So, but you might need some for just to support you as a maintenance. But then it is the protein. Protein is non-negotiable. And in fact, that's the first thing I tell my clients is you gotta have protein. At least 4 times a day, if possible, because it also keeps your blood sugar balanced. And that's the other key to staying sober is to have your blood sugar balanced. When it's not balanced, it drops you into hypoglycemia. And then the brain is like, I'm in trouble. Give me something, puts off adrenaline and says, I want something now. And that's when you find yourself going to the pantry, looking for sugar or something. And because we're in a panic, we have too much of it. And then we spike. And the brain says, I'm in trouble. Help me out. Let me, and puts off too much insulin. So then what happens? We crash. We spike and crash and spike and crash. And the prefrontal cortex right here shuts off. And you become irritable and irrational.
So that's where hangry comes from, right?
Hangry, yeah. I need something, I want it now. And irrational is, I don't care. I want this. So for somebody who's wanting to stay sober, when they get in that irrational state, they don't care anymore.
Yeah. We call that in the industry, I want what I want and I want it now.
Mm-hmm. And I don't care what's going to happen, right?
It's past thinking. You're in autopilot at that point.
Right.
Go find it, get it, and then they go forward. So they might get their hit or whatever it is, and then they're starting to say like, "Oh, that was dumb. Oh, shame. Whatever, stupid." And then they kind of go back through the cycle of, "All right, now I'm gonna put my life back together and figure things out." And if they don't address these issues like you're saying, they always go through the cycle and never back up the ladder, preventing it from getting worse.
Right. So if you can keep your blood sugar level, that's going to give you some tools to stay sober. Because then you're using your brain, your logic, your reasoning, your judgment to say, okay, wait a minute. If I am here and I use something that I know is not good for me, this is what it's going to look like. And so you're able to utilize those tools to keep from heading down that path.
It's interesting. We implemented a residential treatment center, got an IM recovery in Utah County. We're like, we're going to have them eat so clean and healthy. We had a nutritionist come in, plan all these meals, get everything ready, like very low sugar, teach them how to cook, a lot of cooking classes. Got so much pushback.
Really?
People just wanted the pizza. They just wanted their junk foods. They didn't want to help make the healthy foods. Like, it was difficult, really difficult. So we had to find a happy medium, because they come in so addicted to drugs, and then they turn to nicotine and vaping and sugar right away, and
Right.
tons of monster drinks that to tell them to quit alcohol, meth, or whatever else, and sugar, and all these other things all at once. They're just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Their system floods, and like, I'm out.
I'm not doing this.
You can't force me to be here. I'd rather be. They say things like, I'd rather be out high and that than here clean and not be able to enjoy my life. So their enjoyment is all mixed up, and they don't really know how good they could have it if they
Right.
cleared out the cobwebs. So we had to take more of a gradual approach, where we do have a happy medium, and we lean them in the further they're into treatment, into gradually cleaning out everything. Um, I wish it could be a little quicker, but I want people to stay in treatment long enough to get the help they need
Right.
before they run away.
I'm like, give me the food. Well, and the interesting thing is, I tell people it's not an either or and. I mean, it's not an either or, it's and, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying it's either stop all this stuff and come over here, it's let's take you where you are and start feeding the brain what the brain needs. So that by doing that, then it starts to raise those neurotransmitters so that the need can go down enough that they can start to control it. That way, it isn't that feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't have this, right? And the approach is brain, body, and emotions, right? It's like a three-legged stool. So when you have a three-legged stool, you have to have three strong legs for that stool to stand. It won't. And let's take sugar, for example, right? Sugar is one of the most addictive substances, even more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really, tell someone on a 10-day sugar diet, and it's really, really hard.
It is really hard.
It's
So
really hard.
it's like the brain is firing these neurotransmitters. And like I said, each of those drugs and behaviors fit usually into those neurotransmitters. Where sugar, it was brought to my attention, it's like a pinball machine, right? It's like bing, 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 bing. It's hitting every single one of those neurotransmitters. And the brain's like, I love this. Give
This
me
is
sugar.
great.
Give me the sugar, right? So let's say you got to come off sugar, right? Well, physically, you're going to go through withdrawals because the body's like, I like this sugar, right? And the brain is like, you can't, if you take off sugar, I need that sugar to get these neurotransmitters fired. And emotionally, it's like that emotional blanket. It says, no, you can't take away my sugar. And so it's like your brain and body and everything takes hostage and says, yeah, you go ahead and try to quit having sugar, right? And it's almost impossible. Not to say that somebody can't, but it makes it very difficult. But instead of saying you have to stop sugar, which I agree with you 100%, let's add in the protein and the amino acids and some vitamin and minerals because they become depleted when your brain, when somebody is struggling with addiction or the neurotransmitters are low. Let's do that. Then the need's going to come down substantially, right? One of my favorite stories is when I learned about this. I told you I was definitely addicted to sugar, and I went to the class, and she said, "So tyrosine is what feeds the dopamine, right?" And she's like, "Okay, rate yourself 0 to 10. 0 meaning I feel my best. 10 is I feel my worst. The idea is to go from 10 down to a 0. That's how you're kind of looking at it." Oh, I was definitely a 10. Like I just want my sugar and my Diet Coke. So she gave us one tyrosine and she said, okay, 15 minutes later, how do you feel? And at first it was like a placebo effect. Does this really this cannot happen this fast? Do I really feel this good? Or am I just thinking that because They told me that's what I was going to feel like, right? So she's like, if you're not there, or if you're not quite sure, take one more. So I took one more, and I went from like a 5 down to 0. And I no longer was craving the sugar or the Diet Coke, and I had energy. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, this really works. So fingers crossed, I took a couple home to my daughter. And at that time, she's so struggling, and they're giving her so many meds to keep her from wanting the meth, but yet she also couldn't get out of bed. Constantly, just no energy. So I took him home and I said, okay, Angeli, I'm going to give you 2 of these. One of them to take in the morning and one to take in the afternoon. And then let me know how you feel. And I just kept my fingers crossed. Please, 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 please work. Well, I got home that night. I said, how'd you feel? She said, I felt jittery. And I was like, dang. That's a sign of too much tyrosine. You just feel like you're jittery. And I was so bummed. I was like, Well, the next morning she woke up and said, Mom, can you give me a couple more of those energy pills? I said, well, you said they made you jittery. She's like, well, that's because I took 2 of them with 3 cups of coffee. And I was like, huh.
More is always better.
Yeah, more is always better. But I was like, hallelujah. There is something to this. But that was my first experience of what it feels like to actually feed the brain what the brain is missing. And that way, by feeding the brain those specific amino acids, then what it does is it literally makes your brain so the brain is firing these amazing chemicals. And it has made a huge difference.
I feel like the research that you've done and where you've kind of come from and had to piece it together and figure it out and put it in a practical way that people could actually use and afford. And the $1,000 a day thing isn't practical for most people. It's not only it's been ahead of its time, but it's also opened up some of the research alleys around brain health in general.
Right.
And the role that plays not just in rehab, but in all of our lives. And societally, how we're so depleted now, where we don't have nutrition, we're over toxins, all these different things that we might think, well, it's just normal aging. Over 40 now, aging sucks. And ironically, I checked in with a friend yesterday who he had a heart scare. He had to get like a bypass surgery in his heart about a year and a half ago or so. And I just checked on him like, hey, how's things going? He's like, oh, I feel amazing. I've lost all this weight. I feel better than I felt in high school. I'm eating right. I'm exercising. I'm so glad I had that heart scare.
Yeah.
So that it would wake me up and focus on what really matters. I thought, wow, it shouldn't take a heart attack or bypass surgery to wake us up.
Right.
We should be on that path already. Yet, lifestyle, it seems like it's the hardest thing to get people to buy into, at least in my opinion, when there's so many quick solutions.
Right.
McDonald's, medications, you name it. Like, when the first thing is the sugar addiction or the pill the doctor gives you, the lifestyle change is pretty low on that priority. How do we get people, how have you done it? How do you get people to flip that mindset to, I don't need to have a heart attack to figure this out?
Figure it out, right? Well, the first thing is that the idea is to just feel better. Most people are just
feels good to feel good.
Feels good to feel good, right? And you can start really, really small. I mean, the number one thing is to eat protein. That will help you to. You're starting to feed the brain and the body needs, right? Another thing would be omegas because the brain is 65% fat. Omegas are your body's natural help with depression. So happy.
I think you wouldn't run an engine without oil, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
our brain needs that.
It does. It needs that. Yep.
It's going to be gear grinding in there and crashing and burning.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And then the next thing would be figure out which of the neurotransmitters that your body or your brain is low in. It may be only 1 or 2. It may be all 6 of them.
But there's some play there. There's some practice and experiment. Right. A little, like you said, was two too many with 3 cups of coffee. Take one of the coffee.
Yeah.
Find that right balance.
Yeah. And so you're just making these baby steps, right? One little thing at a time. Add some vitamin and minerals that can help to, the brain becomes depleted, the body becomes depleted. Most people who are struggling eat terribly because they're just eating to survive. And so by getting those vitamin and minerals and then and eating, so we're doing the brain with amino acids, we're doing the body with nutrition, getting out and going for a walk, getting some sunshine. Some of those things don't even cost anything, but they can make a huge difference.
I know for my wife and I, going on a walk in the afternoons, evenings is very therapeutic. We breathe the clean air, we feel our bodies moving, we talk out our struggles of the day.
Right.
And if we don't get those in 2 or 3 days, we start to get a little grouchy.
It do start getting grouchy.
I can't speak for her, but I know I get grouchy.
Oh, yeah. A couple of weeks ago, my husband was in the hospital for 8 days. And so I just went up there every single day. And people said, "How you doing? How you doing?" I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine until I realized I wasn't fine. Because sometimes as a caregiver, we're putting everybody first and we forget about ourselves. And even though I know all this stuff, at that moment, my whole focus was on getting out of the hospital and sitting with him. And so we went in on Monday. By Friday, I noticed I was starting to get very emotional. And by Saturday, I went to Walmart. And I felt like my brain, I wasn't thinking clearly at that point. I felt like it was so full. And I'm walking around with my cart. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm in Walmart. Then I left my cart to go find something. And I couldn't find my cart. I was like, what did I do with my cart? And I'm looking around thinking, did somebody come and take my cart? And that's when I finally realized, wait a minute. When was the last time you took your own vitamin minerals? When was the last time you took some amino acids? When was the last time you went for a walk? And I got to the hospital. And I had some with me. So I took my vitamins, I took some amino acids. And I walked up to where my granddaughter was having a basketball game. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I almost feel normal again.
I feel like that's the common sense approach, like being aware of our bodies, paying attention to where we're at. And yet, societally, energy drinks have never had better sales.
Right.
And some bad food, Taco Bell, McDonald's, their numbers are great. And it seems like those are becoming the new go-tos. Eat junk, drink a lot, have a bunch of coffee, have a bunch of energy drinks. It's discouraging, especially when we look at our youth.
Right.
Jumping into that. 20 years ago, I read an article from Wellness Mama, which she's got an awesome online blog. I don't know if she's still around, but her stuff was great in the early 2000s. And she got started because when she learned that her children were going to die before her statistically, it freaked her out because of all these other things, the bad food, the lifestyle. Right. That's before energy drinks really came on the scene. So are our grandkids gonna die before us? Is that the trend we're going if our society doesn't shift gears? So for me, I look at my kids like, all right, we're trying hard to feed them better. We're trying hard to cook meals. Yet they go with their friends and they find a way to buy a Monster or a Red Bull. And I'm like, you guys know what dumb that is? Or they're up at the ski resorts and there's the Red Bull people handing out Red Bulls to all the kids. And they're doing cool TV stunts and the Red Bull guys skiing with a rocket pack and doing backflips and really marketing to our youth and convincing them that their answer to their energy drop is more junk.
More Red Bull. Yeah, which is highly caffeinated and it does that, spikes that dopamine. But then you come down and then what happens?
you need more.
You need more of it, right?
So I don't know if you remember this, but back in like the 1980s, there was a drink called Jolt Soda. You ever heard Jolt Soda?
I was hooked on Tab at the time, but it's
Probably close.
close to it.
But you couldn't buy it. You had to have an ID. It was considered a legal substance because it was so strong. It was an adult beverage.
Oh,
But it was it was just a lot of caffeine. It was a early stage energy drink before energy drinks were popular.
oh, okay.
And I remember my friends and I would like go to the grocery store, and there was this cashier that didn't check things, and one of my buddies bought one of those, and he was so wired. Like, whoa, that's not good for you, man. You don't seem right. So fast forward a few years, the energy drink industry at this point was a novelty item. It wasn't something that was in mainstream. It wasn't something that you could just get. In fact, it couldn't be sold normal. It couldn't be sold across the counter. It was a novelty item. You still had to have an ID. You had to be 18 plus to buy energy drinks. So lobbyists in Washington decided to work with these companies to spread the good word. They went ahead and they found a workaround to treat it as not a normal beverage, but as a supplement.
Oh,
so
okay.
Under different legislation laws, as a supplement, you had the choice to drink it if you wanted to drink it or not. And they no longer had to have the ID restriction. So now anybody can buy Monsters, energy drinks, and Red Bulls ad nauseum as much as they want. And their numbers have gone up into the billions in profits, where before it was nothing like that. So I don't know why I go on that tangent, but I feel like if people were using amino acids and keeping themselves stable, they wouldn't have to lean into those very addictive drinks that are very hard to get off of.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like you're right. Our diet leads to bad choices, right? A teenager gets up in the morning and they're in a hurry. So they're not even eating. Sometimes they run out and they're not eating anything, right? Yeah. And they get to school and their brain is foggy because it's not been fed. One of the things is when you tax your brain, so when you're working and you're learning new things, it taxes the brain, which depletes you of glutamine and glucose. So then it's lunchtime, and they run to the gas station and they're getting their pizzas and their drinks and their chips because the brain is like, yeah, I need to be fed. I need something, right? Or they get up in the morning and they have a big bowl of sugar. Not sugar. Well, it is sugar, but big bowl of cereal, right? Very little protein. So now they're leaving to go to school with their blood sugar spiking, and they get to school and it crashes. And so the same thing. It's like, I can't think here, so give me the monster drink or give me something with caffeine or food that's going to be high in carbs. It's going to bring me back up because they're recognizing I need something. I don't know what I need, but brain's like, okay, you need what's going to give you what you're needing the fastest, which is going to be those monster drinks or caffeine drinks or
all the candy and
the candy.
other junk.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like our brains they're wonderful and they're powerful and they need the fat, they need the protein, they need the good sugars. And I feel like we're designed that way.
Right.
Hunter gatherer, we need to go find those things. And now when we get those things, they used to be more scarce. And you got like your proteins and you got your natural sugars. Now they're like so easy and abundant.
Right.
And we haven't caught up with, call it evolution yet.
Yeah.
And we're just unprepared to take that on unless we're the kind of person who eats our protein 4 times a day and balances our fruits and vegetables and keeps those things down. I felt like personally, I would do a lot better if I was just on a schedule. But I'm that kind of person that will distract and work away and miss 7 hours of eating. And then I'm like, oh, I'm so hungry. I
give me
can
something.
really go for some McDonald's right now. And then I feel like crap for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. What can I get the fastest? Because the brain is telling you, you're starving me here. I need something. And at that point, logic And thinking clearly has gone out the window. That's where that irrational comes in. And it's what can I have that's going to be the fastest?
So we've talked for about an hour now. I think we probably need to start wrapping down a few things. What would be some things you really want to highlight in the last 10, 15 minutes of our conversation?
First thing I would say is, if you're a parent of a child that's struggling, figure out, can you add a little bit more protein into their day, right? So just like I said, it's not an either or, it's an and. Okay, if I'm going to give them something that's got sugary, what can I give them to offset it so that they have the protein to balance that so they don't do the spikes and the crashes? Um, Children do very well on amino acids. And they don't need much of it, nor do they need it very long because they haven't been on this planet very long. So the brain hasn't become depleted.
Well, just highlight that. We have a son who we know when he needs amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to get really grumpy and really difficult. And it's really interesting because Nicole can go get him like one pill, one of your amino acids, so which we love him. And within like 10 minutes, he's nice again. We're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be better at getting it into his system beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of like a little bit of a magic pill for us. Like, okay. And
Yeah.
for a while there, he's like, oh, why did I take these again? I take these again. Now he's just like, okay, takes it.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows he's going to feel better. Which we want the positive supplements to make people feel better, opposed to what your daughter went through, where you turn to something a lot heavier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same thing is figure out what your brain needs and start taking those amino acids and understanding your brain. You'll understand what am I missing and what do I need. And it happens really quickly. The cool thing is if you need them, you can feel a difference within 10 to 15 minutes. So you're not waiting for them to build up in your body. You're just taking you're feeding the brain what your brain needs. Just like we have to feed our body every day, but the food doesn't, once the food digests, you need more food, right? That's why we eat throughout the day. Same thing with the brain. The brain uses what it needs, but it doesn't build up in the brain. We need to feed it again until the brain can start firing on its own. And that's when it's like, oh, wow, I feel alive. I feel awake. I have energy. I'm thinking clearly. I'm feeling good. Um, and you said aging and people say all the time, well, it's because you're getting older. That these are happening. You're getting older. I don't know that I'll be 63 in June. And I don't know that I actually believe it, but I feel like when you start taking care of your body's only doing what it's used to. I mean, you figure my body's been carrying me for 63 years and it's done the best it could with what I'm feeding it. And so by being aware of what does my body need? How can I help it to feel better? It responds fairly quickly. And that way you're doing the brain body, and then the emotional part would be hypnotherapy, which for me is getting to the emotional part. So once we understand the brain is being fed and the body's being fed, what are some of those limiting beliefs that could have been there since you were a child, right? And so you go in and you can heal that little child so that the subconscious thinks differently and it can choose differently.
I want to ask you some hypno questions here.
Okay.
Because I see some trends happening right now, and I want you to get your opinion on it. I've heard from people before, maybe it was even you in a past conversation long ago, that the subconscious is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Some say like up to 1,000 times more powerful than our conscious state. Does that sound accurate, or off by a couple thousand? So.
Well, okay, 5% to 10% is conscious. The other 85%, 90% is subconscious. So yeah.
So it's a very powerful part of our life. It's much in those undertones.
Right.
The other thing I remember talking about or hearing about was to replace a script in your subconscious without hypnotherapy. It takes around 1,000 impressions. So if you have a negative self thought of, oh, I'm just not good enough, you'd have to replace that with about 1,000 I am good enoughs. Does that sound accurate or within reason?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because so the conscious and subconscious, right? A lot of the things that we're dealing with is is in the subconscious, right? There before as a child, when things happen to children, they don't know how to process it. So those experiences, those emotions go somewhere in the body until the person is old enough to be able to become aware and say, what do I need to fix here? Right? So the challenge is there's a filter between the conscious and subconscious that blocks out what is real and true. It's developed between the ages of 7 and 12. So before that, there's no filter. That's why everything goes in the subconscious. Child believes everything, whether that's true or not true. And then this comes. And we start to kick things out that are not true. Right? So if I said to you, hey, I like your pink shirt you have on today, what would you think?
Currently, I'm not wearing a pink shirt.
I'm not wearing a pink shirt, right? Yeah. I like your orange shirt you have on today. Be like, oh, she's colorblind. She don't see nothing, right?
Yeah, if you're okay.
Yeah. If I say I like your shirt you have on today, yours, with blue checkers and everything, that's a great looking shirt. That feels different, right? Okay. So you've already kicked out that my shirt's not pink and it's not orange, right? So the same thing happens when we want to make a change. So let's say we set a goal and we go, I am financially free, right? But the subconscious goes, well, no, you're not. So it kicks it out, right? Mm-hmm. I live at my perfect weight. No, you don't. So it kicks it out, right? Because this is blocking because it doesn't believe that, right? And so the challenge is it's not that affirmations are bad; they're good, but things go in the subconscious two ways. One's being blindsided, and one is being repetition.
So blindsided like a trauma event.
Yeah, trauma event, right?
Or repetition, just
yeah,
over and over again.
Yeah, 9/11, right? Blindsided, went down in this subconscious. A lot of people became afraid of flying.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty quick, just boom.
Excellent, right? It's scary. Or, like I said, it's this repetition. So when you say it's 1,000 times, it's what's happening is each time we're saying it consciously, if the subconscious doesn't believe it, it keeps kicking out, right? And so you have to say it so many times until the subconscious finally says, oh, okay, it looks like this might be a truth. So then this filter goes away and it can go in the subconscious and grow. If they're put into when somebody is in a hypnotic state, this filter's gone. And that's when the subconscious and conscious can talk to each other. And that's when affirmations are very successful because there's nothing blocking them. So it goes in the subconscious and it starts to grow much easier because these two can finally talk to each other and this isn't blocking it out because it's not got some of these limiting beliefs over here that the subconscious is keeping you protected from.
Okay, here's the mind meld for you. That all checks out for me.
Okay.
And I look at now algorithms. So we look at TikTok, for example, and Instagram and YouTube Shorts. These algorithms, when let's say your son or daughter searches something. So I have a son who likes skiing. He searches a ski video, and now whenever time I'm on my phone, I flip and all I see is ski videos mixed between ads. That's pretty much it, unless I choose to look at something else. So some of our children are looking at things like weight loss or other trends, makeup trends or eating trends, and they're getting fed thousands of little mini videos over the course of a fairly short amount of time. Mm-hmm. In my thought, and this is where I'd love to hear your feedback from hypnotherapy, if you're seeing thousands of images and videos all giving you the same theme, will that contribute to whatever disorder could come from that? Eating disorder for people that are looking too skinny, self-harm from kids who are bragging about it on their feeds, whatever you name it. Do you see that as breaking through the subconscious at a record rate?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and we talk about like the endorphins, right? We're looking for that endorphin fix, that right? And especially children. Children are already in a hypnotic state, so they're already susceptible to what they're seeing, and so it's like their mind is open. If they're on social media watching these things, it is just coming in as clear as can be because they have nothing to block it.
So it's before 7 to 12. So it's somewhere in between. So if you're at 12 and under, you should stay off of social media.
Absolutely.
Period.
I absolutely.
And then even older, it just takes a little more crack into the eggs as crack.
Well, yeah, because even a teenager, some have been programmed to, this is feeding something, and they're also in a hypnotic state. So it's very easy to get into this, and you're so enthralled here that you're not even hearing anything around you.
Okay, so you're almost putting yourself in it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
By the focal point and where you're switching your brain waves.
Mm-hmm. So when those things come at us, they have nothing to. They're taking it in, right?
And is that part of that scrolling? You say like you scroll for 2 hours and you realize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of semi-hypnotized right there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. So yes, isn't that crazy? All right, I'll tell you a really crazy story really fast. That has to do with this. So what happens is when somebody is hyper focused. So hypnosis it's not mind reading, it's not mind control, it's hyper focused. Just you're focused on something that you're not paying attention to go out here. Right. So like if you drive a car and you get there and you go, I do not know how I got here. That's a hypnotic state, right? In the back of your mind, you're not obviously you can drive, you're on autopilot, but you're really not really focusing on what's going on. Okay. When you're on your phone, and you're really ingrained in here what's going on, and somebody could be calling your name and you don't even hear them, right? Because you're so focused on this, and they think you're being rude, and you're like, I didn't even hear you talk, right? Okay. Crazy story. My husband he's a bus driver down in Ogden, and there's a main road for those of you who don't know. It's called Washington Boulevard.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The Bard.
Yep, the Bard, right? I used to try it when I was little. But he was pulled over, and all of a sudden, these sirens are all coming down the street. Police, the firemen, the ambulance, and everybody's coming down Washington Boulevard. There's a girl, and she's walking across the road. She's so ingrained here. She don't even hear them at all. They're full sirens, they're honking and everything. She's not paying attention. They had to stop in the middle of before the sidewalk or the crossing until she crossed across. Because she was so focused here. She didn't hear them. And finally, when she got in the middle, she looked back and saw them.
That's a big scare.
It's like, what?
There's a trauma event right there.
Trauma. And then they were able to go, but it was like, that's what happens is we're so focused on this. And that can happen with your children or your teenagers or yourself, where all your focus is on, you're so hyper focused that you're not paying attention to what's going on.
That's scary. And I feel that distracted drivers, they got their phones up now. Mm-hmm. I used to ride bike on the side of the road. I don't dare anymore.
It's scary.
There's just a couple of like, well, that was really close. And it's not worth it. Like it's not as safe as you might think. You might be paying attention when you're on your bike, but now there's so much distraction, so many people that are just you focus in the wrong ways.
Right. And it's so easy to become distracted that you didn't pay attention.
So my fear of people developing these calm phobias, eating disorders, self-harm attributes, depressions, anxieties at a rapid rate, that's becoming more and more realistic. That is a contributor of subconscious getting bombarded. Mm-hmm. And you hear these kids say how much time are they on their phones, right, and how much time is on social media. We're talking like teenagers are averaging 11, 12 hours a day.
Right.
Some up to their entire day. They're just never off. Wow.
Well, and it's crazy because so many teenagers are now living in this world that says, I can be an influencer. I don't have to have a job. I don't have to do anything. They're going to pay me, right? And they're growing up, and they see all the the bad things are going on in the world. They're bombarded with so many things that they're afraid. So they graduate and they have no direction because they live in a world of fear. Or I don't have to work because somebody's going to pay me a lot of money. Why would I want to have a job? And so they're not learning the skills to move into a world that demands that you be productive, that you learn how to take care of yourself. And
Well, like even the ones that do say they make it as influencers, they're typically not taking care of their bodies. They drink a ton of junk. They eat a ton of junk. They're not having proper hygiene. I thought it was interesting. My nephew goes to these Pokemon tournaments. And they're just fun. But there's a rule in a Pokemon tournament that if your opponent is demonstrating very poor hygiene, you call for a break. And they have to go clean it up within like a certain amount of time or they're disqualified.
Really? I thought you'd have to come to the point where, like, dude, you gotta take care of yourself.
You smell so bad. I can't even focus. But that kind of goes back to the point of hyper focusing on one thing and just letting everything else fall away. But then there's a lot of other people who don't say they're not successful. They think they're going to become the next influencer, they're going to become the next star. And then they deplete all their dopamine just trying to do that. And then they don't want to go work the job locally or do the school or practice any musical instruments. They're just drained.
Right.
They're like, I'm burnt. Why would I need to earn money? Why should I even leave the couch at this point?
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't know. I appreciate the dialogue. I think this is much needed. I think what you're doing is incredible. It's helping a lot of people. I know it's helped me and my family specifically. It's helped me in my work with my addiction recovery program and out here at Corner Cove. We love using your resources and your knowledge. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and where people can find it or they can connect with you a little bit better?
I would love to. So I wrote this book. It's Feed Your Brain, Change Your Life. Take control of your brain, body, and emotions. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Spanish. So if you speak Spanish, you can even get it in Spanish. You get it in Audible and in ebook. It talks about my story, but it talks about each of the neurotransmitters and each of the amino acids that feed it so that you understand what they are and how they work. And then it also talks about a little bit about hypnosis, self-hypnosis. So it kind of goes through that whole gamut, brain, body, and emotions. You can reach me at, well, my website is hypnoaminos.com. And my website, not my website, that is my website. My email is shellyjo@hypnoaminos.com.
We'll post all this in the comments as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then the other thing is if you're somebody you're like, I want to learn this. I want to learn about amino acids. I want to learn about hypnotherapy. Is I teach a class on the amino acids, the specific ones, how they work, and how to help you feel better. If you go to my website, you're going to find I have my own supplement line of amino acids that feed the brain, just like you're talking about.
I can tell you, I love how you did the bottles.
You like them?
Because they make it so easy to know what to work on. Like, oh, this one says pretty clearly.
Yeah, gotta chill.
Gotta chill.
Yeah.
Like, all right, he's getting the chill pill.
Yep. Energy booster, tyrosine, positive sleep, positive mind, craving control. They're all there. They're all the specific amino acids. They're created in Utah. Non-GMO, gluten-free, 100% natural, all those great things.
And I know you went to like great lengths to make sure people are getting high quality, clean, everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a certified hypnotherapy school. So if somebody said, wow, now you got my mind interested, I think that is something that I would be interested in. I do that too. So
it's awesome. Well, Shelly, thank you so much for your time. It's been a blast, long getting to meet you again and talk in person and do the whole gamut.
Thanks, Jared. This has been fun. Thank you, guys. I hope you learned something. You get up to Morgan, come up here. It's amazing. And I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Shelly.